I'm Bruce Barber. Welcome to another edition of Postcards from the Pandemic. And I want to tell you something. This is a very special one because, of course, Johnny Broker is here.
I am here, and I agree with you. We're only 3 episodes in, but I feel like this is the most important thing we may
This
ever.
is because we are joined by Steve Werlin, who is your title Executive Director of Desk?
It is, and I feel like you're putting a lot of pressure on me here. Wow, the most important, but I guess it's like you said. So like we're only three, and so I shouldn't let it go.
Yeah, well, let's be honest here. Johnny and I like to apply some pressure from time to time.
It focuses the minds.
Johnny, you know what bothers me about Steve Werlin?
He's a better person than both of us?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I'm the worst. I'm the worst.
He was a better person than both of us before the pandemic, and now he's taken it to these ridiculous heights.
I think we should have Steve just kind of introduce himself and talk a little bit about what he does.
Yeah, Steve, give your overview of what your job is and how long you've been doing it.
Sure. So I am the executive director here at Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen, or Desk as we call it. Desk has been around for going on 36 years now. And we do a dinner program every night, or 5 nights a week, down in downtown New Haven, right behind the Haven Public Library. We do a weekly food pantry. And our mission here is to serve people who are experiencing homelessness or living in poverty, by providing food assistance and services that promote health and promote community, or promote equity right here in New Haven.
And let me ask you, how long have you been doing that?
So I've been here about 3.5 years now as executive director.
And what was it that drew you to it, I'm wondering?
Yeah, so I used to work for Columbus House, which is another it's a much larger organization. They do homelessness services here in New Haven as well, and they're very well known. And I loved it. It's a great organization, and it's a very big organization too. And that was just one sort of piece of the puzzle. And I've always, when I first got involved in nonprofit work, I was always involved in small grassroots nonprofits, and I really kind of missed that sort of on the ground feel and getting to work with volunteers and getting to connect with the people you're serving. And so there was an opportunity. This has actually happened. It was right after the 2016 election. I feel like a lot of us were doing a lot of soul searching back then. And I was asking myself, well, how can I, what can I do? What can be my part to really do more and make more of an impact and feel at the end of the day that I can go home and feel like I've really made a difference. And so this job, came up, and I said, yeah, this is where I feel like I can really make a difference. So started here, and right after the new year in 2017.
Johnny,
I mean, as a third generation New Haven guy whose family, my father worked at Columbus House. My mother is still at 85. Volunteers in the St. Thomas More Soup Kitchen.
That's awesome.
I mean, and we just have such a great city. And just a little side note, last year they talked about cities in the country, and New Haven is the most representative of America in terms of ethnic makeup and socioeconomic. So we have this incredible affluence. We also have a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness and are in poverty. And, I've had a Jesuit education, like the need for service and the help for service is always kind of built into me. And what you do and what Desk does is just remarkable. It's such we're going to get into it. It's just got to be so different now.
Yeah. That's right. We really, in the course of doing these, we like to talk to people about what it was like, on whatever it was, March, 8th, 9th, 10th or whatever. Yeah. And then what it was like before the pandemic. And then of course, what is it like now?
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, before the pandemic, we had all these plans for doing some really great work, and we were looking at opening up some new programs, and we were looking at homelessness in New Haven was on a downward trend, but one of the gaps that we really saw still has been people who are the hardest to reach population, those who've been on the street for a really long time. And Desk was really, we saw our niche, and we still do see our niche as really catering to those who have been on the street a long time and who are unsheltered, and providing that first point of contact for a lot of people who are also new to homelessness. Soup kitchens tend to be the first place that people go. And so we were looking at opening up some new programming to speak to that need right there. And then when this hit, we really had to get right back to basics. We said, okay, it's just right now, it's all about keeping the doors open. Right now, it's just all about getting food to people. And so, so those plans are still there, and we'll get back to them after the crisis. But the biggest change that we've seen since mid-March is just going right back to getting food out the door and getting food into bellies and making sure that people are healthy and safe.
Yeah, I think, for me, one of the big things that this has illuminated, Johnny, I think we've talked about this before, is the fact that, this puts just such a sharp point on the divide between those who have and those who have not. And I'm interested, kind of how it looks from where you sit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good question. Those who were unsheltered and on the street before all this are still unsheltered and on the street. There's been a lot of work done that's focused on the homeless population that was in shelters and in congregate sites and taking care of them. And a lot of the work around the unsheltered population has kind of been put on hold. And one of the most troubling pieces of this has been that the average day for someone who's on the street involves going to a lot of different places. So they're going to, Dunkin' Donuts, and they go hang out at the library for a little bit. Maybe they'll jump into City Hall if it's really cold. Maybe they'll go down to the train station and hang out there. It's a lot of moving around, and a lot of these places are now closed. And a lot of the day programs offering, programs for substance use treatments, a lot of those are closed. And so the soup kitchens, and I have to give a shout out here to some of our partners over at Sunrise Cafe that does breakfast over in Worcester Square.
Oh, yeah.
Community Soup Kitchen, the Community Soup Kitchen on Broadway that does lunch. 3 soup kitchens remaining open have been really important anchors to all of this, not just by providing food, but providing just that point of contact and giving people someplace to go to get, just have a quick check-in and make sure that everyone's healthy, especially concerned right now because if people are showing symptoms, we want to be able to connect them to healthcare services. But even as simple as like a place to use the bathroom, it's just all of these places that we were used to relying on as just part of the public landscape.
Wow. Yeah, that's just something I hadn't thought of, obviously, because I don't have to. And you're right. It's and maybe, and we'll get to this in a minute, because Johnny and I always like to, get to a point where, yes, we talk about the challenges that, we're all facing here. But then we do want to get to, kind of what potentially that is good can come from this, and how can we become maybe more self-aware. But to support this, one thing we did want to mention is, and we wanted to talk to you now, I wanted to give a little context too. All roads seem to lead through either John Broker or his friend Rob Oliver. So, Johnny, did you know Steve through Rob?
I knew Steve through Rob because Steve was Rob's neighbor in Westville. So that's how.
Yeah, and then Steve, that's how I got to know you, right?
Yeah. It's true. Many roads in this city go right through Rob Oliver.
That's exactly right. And we've had some great dinners at his house and some great dinners at your house. So, and we are so appreciative of we've always been so appreciative of what it is you do. But so we did want to mention that, one of the reasons we kind of set this up for now, we have a long list of great people to talk to around New Haven and beyond. But it's because the Great Give is this week. And so talk a little about that and how important that is for Desk.
Yeah, I mean, as a small organization, we don't do a we don't do a ton of big events. We have usually like 1 or 2 throughout the year, and this is one of them. And I call it an event, but it's really it's like a non-event because it's all online, and it's a community-wide fundraising campaign that is administered by the local community foundation, the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, and nonprofit organizations all across the city participating. So we've got soup kitchens and shelters, but then we've got music and arts nonprofits, and those interested in the environment, and anything else you can think of. And the idea is that we take these 36 hours and everybody raises money using mostly online resources, all the more so this year. In past years, we've kind of capped it with a happy hour, which we had planned for this year, but of course we're not doing that. And the idea is that during those 36 hours, you go online to thegreatgive.org, you find your nonprofit that you want to support. It's down to anything super. You find your nonprofit that you want to support, and then you give. And the entire it's like a friendly competition between nonprofits, but it's also meant to just show how many people across our city, across our greater New Haven, really, are giving on this one day. And each year that bottom line gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The number of people who participate.
That is, I'm so glad you got to mention that, because we'll be in on that this year.
Oh, good. Oh, very good.
I'd just like to ask a question to kind of put a fine point on that, particularly in this time with this pandemic going on, just kind of get your thoughts of, New Haven's such a vibrant city, and I know some of the soup kitchens rely on Yale a little bit, and there's a good relationship that goes on around, but Yale's essentially closed, and everything they have coming to town is closed, and people are at home, and I'm not sure, your challenges in getting the resources you need for this population right now. I just love to hear you put a finer point on that challenge and why people should really be in the Great Give.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, what we've found is that our numbers are increasing to a point where the normal ways that we access food and the people who do the work, the volunteers, it's just not enough. And so normally, in normal times, as we say, we're used to getting about 60 to 70% of our food from the Connecticut Food Bank. And right now, the Connecticut Food Bank, they're doing good work, but they just can't keep up with this need. And they are finding themselves having to compete with retailers to get food because, as we all know, for all of us who have either been to stores or been ordering, from supermarkets online, there's no toilet paper, there's no, pasta's low, rice is low, beans are low. A lot of these staple items, flour, these staple items that we're used to getting, not only can people not get them in the stores, but the distributors, like the Connecticut Food Bank, who are providing food to food assistance organizations like ours, can't get the food either. And so because of that, we are finding it all the more difficult to access food. So here we are finding ourselves having to go from purchasing, on pennies on the dollar from the food bank to going to wholesale distributors and having to purchase food just like restaurants or just like supermarkets would.
So you heard it's thegreatgive.org.
Oh yes.
Desk.
That's what a follow-up question for me too, because you mentioned volunteers, right? So, having been around this and done some times at the same time as Moore Soup Kitchen and Columbus House, a lot of the volunteers tend to be a little older and tend to be people who have more of the time and are probably a little more at risk for COVID-19 right now. And maybe there are a lot of people out there and that could be encouraged to come and volunteer because while they're in a challenging place without work right now, getting unemployment or whatever, the volunteer opportunities must be plentiful.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And again, in normal times, most of our volunteers are coming from faith-based organizations, a lot of churches and synagogues. They're coming from, Rotary groups. They're coming from civic organizations where it tends to be people who are older. People who are retired tend to have more time on their hands, and so they're able to do sort of these civic activities. And so, those people are the ones who are explicitly being told, don't leave your house, stay home. And so they are not coming to volunteer. So very early on, we had to sort of shift things a little, open up new lines of outreach to get volunteers. But for those who are interested in volunteering, yes, we still need volunteers. And to sign up to volunteer, you can go to our website. It's deskct.org/COVID-19. You can find all the information right there as to how to sign up. We have our dedicated intern who is now working off site because she can't come in anymore. But she's dedicated just to doing volunteer management right now. We've kind of redeployed her a little bit because this is really a great need.
And so I think this is the perfect time to segue into, we've heard the challenges and, I think it's pretty safe to say that the challenges that somebody like I'm facing or Johnny's facing, are, nowhere near, what some of your guests are facing. So hopefully there's a glass half full in this, that there's, a brighter future ahead, please.
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, look, once the economy starts opening back up, we'll see people getting paychecks again, and then of course the need is going to drop a little bit. And I think that's sort of the what we're all sort of waiting for. And the big look, the $1 million question. I'm no economist, so I can't say. But the big question that's looming is, how long is that going to take? Are we talking about 3 months? Are we talking about 6 months? Are we talking about 3 years or 6 years? I mean, we really don't know at this point. But it's a great question, and we are assuming that this is going to be something that is, we have to assume the worst case scenario, right? So we're going to assume that this is sort of something that's going to be with us a while. That said, New Haven is in a really good position to deal with this. Not only on the economic side, I don't need to get into that because I'm not an economist, but on the food assistance side, we have places like Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen, and I'll mention some of our partners like Loaves and Fishes and Jewish Family Service and Fish of Greater New Haven, that are just doing incredible work in the neighborhoods and feeding people who and they've been there for a long time, and they know the people in their neighborhoods, they know the people that they're getting food to, and so making sure that we support these organizations and support this network is really important. We're very fortunate in New Haven though, because we have something that just started last year called the Coordinated Food Assistance Network, or CFAN we call it. And this is a group where all these different food assistance organizations get together. We get together on a weekly basis. Now, usually we get together monthly. Now we're doing weekly. And we strategize. And we say, okay, we're going to get these resources over there. We're going to get those resources over there. You're missing volunteers? Okay, we're going to help you get more volunteers. You need food? Okay, we're going to help you get food. And by doing this, we support one another, and we make sure that everybody is getting food and getting the resources to where it needs to be.
That's glass half full.
It makes all the difference. It makes the difference.
That's fantastic.
I'm going to ask for a glass half full story, Steve, if I could. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. But, like the news is consumed in some ways with a lot of people bringing food and doing things for sort of frontline workers, which is wonderful, right? It's amazing that people are really kind of opening up their hearts and doing stuff like that. But less noticed is the work that you do. And I don't know if there's any sort of particular thing you can highlight of something that's kind of, touch your heart a little bit during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just been the wealth of volunteers coming out. I mean, you mentioned that, you asked whether or not we're in need of volunteers. Yeah, yes, we are, and I would never turn away new volunteers coming. But seeing new people come out of the woodwork, and has just been, I think people could have looked at this situation and said, okay, I've got the next 6 weeks off. I'm going to play video games, or I'm going to but they didn't. They said, what can I do? How can I help? I just, seeing especially people who are in their 20s and 30s, people that don't have obligations at home, people who aren't taking care of, someone who's older or aren't taking care of children, able to come out and just recognize the need and get the job done. And I think for me, that's just been the most important part of all of this. Making sure that these organizations that are doing this work can continue doing it, but having that buy-in from everybody in the community has just been incredibly.
Yeah, that is so cool. Well, we know we got to let you go serve dinner right now.
They're already serving. Do we want to go outside and take a look and see what they're doing? You guys have time for this?
We definitely do. But I just quickly wanted to say that, of course, you're a heavyweight. Just helping out. I am a lightweight. So the way I helped last year and the way I'm looking forward to helping this year is your annual fundraiser that you do in partnership with Yale. And, I just feel like I can't wait till we get back to the new normal and doing the things we love together,
Bruce, I have to tell you, your partner in crime for that fundraiser, James Tedessa from Union League Cafe, was one of the first people who came out to us and said, "Hey, restaurant's closed. I got nothing to do." And he showed up, threw a mask on, and started hauling boxes with us
Wow.
down here. So
Yeah,
it's,
he is awesome. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. No, that's great. So looking forward to good days. So yeah, before we go, we'd love to, kind of
Get
get
a
an
little tour.
idea. Yeah, get a
Okay.
little tour of what you're doing.
Okay, so I'm in my office right now, but since I am about to leave my office, I am going to put my mask on here because, of course, we go outside, we put a mask on, and we go downstairs, we put a mask on. So if I get a little muffled here, that'll be why. So I apologize in
Yeah,
advance.
I see my neighbor Gloria going out for a walk with her
Oh
mask on
yes,
now. So
yes,
be safe.
We've learned how to
yes.
translate, from math to English, so we're pretty good.
That's right. Okay, and I'm going to move the phone here a little too. So if I
Okay.
a little, I hope no one gets seasick at all. So we're going to go downstairs real quick. You can see sort of our how our dining room has changed into a software warehouse as we try to bring in new food. So we'll just go check that out real quick, and then we'll go outside. I'm not sure how far into dinner there that it might be almost done, but we'll check it out.
Yeah, we talked before that also, it's important to protect the privacy of everyone who's there. So Steve will be doing that. Oh, look at this. He's he's obviously in that dangerous spot we all encounter.
Yeah.
No Wi-Fi.
We'll click back on in a second.
Oh, there he is. He's
there
back
we
with
go.
us.
There we go.
Yes.
So right now we are in, it's usually our dining room, but it has sort of transitioned into a soft room. You can see we have tables up, and most of the food is out because we're at the end of the week here. Our big shipments come in on Monday. So this is the emptiest you will see it on all week. But even still right now, you can see kind of in the corner, we've got food getting ready to go out later this week. We start bagging things up as well, so yeah.
So are you, and how do you usually serve there, but is it now taken out? Is that the dynamic?
Exactly. So,
yeah.
So normally all of these tables here are actually set up it's like a cafeteria, like a dining room. And, normally, our folks will kind of come in this way, and they'll get their food at these steam tables over here behind me. And right now it's just, we've transitioned all of this to stockroom type warehouse space because can't have people in here, and we need the space to store food. So yeah, so that's kind of where we are now. Yep.
Johnny, he's not making me feel better about myself right now. I'm gonna make something in the Instant Pot tonight.
We can encourage people to give to the downtown evening soup kitchen. We can do a social media push for the Great Give.
Yeah, well, so I think, and that's a great way to close out by just saying, it's greatgive.org.
It's thegreatgive.org. That's right. And you want to, of course, search downtown evening soup kitchen when you go inside. That's right. Of course. So I'm just heading outside right now. It looks like they're just wrapping up dinner out here. They started serving tonight around 4:30, and then so we would have had like a long line here at that point.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's again entered the no bandwidth zone. That's the worst place you could be these days. So Johnny, he's amazing, isn't he? Isn't that?
The first time I was introduced to him, and the typical "what do you do?" and he told me, and I was like, "You're a better man than I am." Like,
yeah, exactly. And and Leslie, his wife, is amazing, and Steve was so nice. Oh, there, look at that. That's fantastic. Yeah. And I'm just complimenting your wife, and also they've got two beautiful children. So yeah, he's the man. Don't you agree, Johnny?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there he is.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So right now we're right outside here, and so what we've been doing is setting up tables here, and then people can kind of come up and they get their food, and we've switched to what we call a grab and go model. Since we can't be serving in our dining room anymore, right now what we're doing is people just kind of come up, they get their food, and they kind of move on. They can hang out and eat a little bit, but the idea is to not have people congregating as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I mean, again, what can we say? When you've got Johnny Broker and Bruce Barber speechless, you have done something, man. You are. Johnny. It's even scaring me a little bit.
It's an eye-opening conversation. You need those. You need to sort of see where you can help.
Yeah, and I love, Johnny, what you had to say about you definitely come from a tradition of giving, and also New Haven is just amazing in that way too.
Back in here, I think.
Yeah.
Steve,
All right. So, Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one, and we'll talk soon.
Downtown
All right.
Kitchen, The Great Give, we'll be on it. So,
Totally. Yeah.
right.
Stay well. Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Stay home. No, you got to go serve the food. That's the thing. We'll stay home for you.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, man.
Cheers.